Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're looking into building a modular home, you probably already know about the incredible efficiency and, honestly, the top-tier quality that comes from factory construction. But there's a massive piece of the puzzle that actually happens right on your property, and that's the work of your general contractor, or GC. Today, we're going to walk through exactly what a GC actually does on-site to bring your modular home to life. We're breaking down the whole blueprint so you know precisely where the factory's job ends and your GC's critical work begins. Let's get into it.
Okay, building a home is a journey, right? So let's look at the timeline to know exactly what to expect. About a month before your home even arrives, your GC is handling permits and groundwork. Then, in the week leading up to delivery, the foundation is set. Next is the main event, set day, when your home is actually delivered and craned into place. The week after that is all about connecting systems. And finally, weeks 3 and 4 are dedicated to those vital final finishes. Seeing it laid out like this really kind of helps demystify the whole timeline, doesn't it?
So, here's our roadmap for today. Step 1. Prep, permits and groundwork. 2. Foundation, setting the base. 3. The big day, delivery. 4. Connecting your home's systems. And 5. Exterior and interior finishes.
Now, before we go any further, we absolutely need to define a term you're going to hear a lot. It's called the marriage line, or sometimes the mate wall. This is the specific seam where the modular boxes join together on-site. Grasping this concept is literally the key to understanding your GC's responsibilities. See, the factory builds the individual boxes, sure, but it's your GC who comes in and seamlessly stitches them together right at this marriage line, both structurally and cosmetically. Keep this term in your back pocket.
All right, part 1, prep, permits and groundwork.
You know, the very first hurdle isn't actually moving dirt, it's moving paperwork. You're going to need building, septic, and driveway permits. Now, this is a total team effort. Either your GC or you will need to formally obtain these from the local township. The really good news here is that companies like Express Modular will actually assist with a lot of that heavy paperwork, making sure your GC has exactly the engineered plans they need to get the green light. Once those permits are finally in hand, the heavy machinery rolls in. First up, excavating the foundation hole and leveling the basement floor with gravel. Pretty standard, right? But notice steps 2 and 3. They also have to excavate a very specific area for the massive crane to sit safely, plus dig these deep trenches from the foundation all the way out to the water, septic, and electric hookups. So it's way more than just digging a hole for the house. It's prepping the literal pathways for heavy machinery and all your vital utilities.
I want to pause on this quote for a second because it's super important for managing your expectations. It talks about the backfill process and says the grade can be left as a rough final grade for you to finish, meaning you're out there raking, picking rocks, seeding, mulching, or it can just be included in your overall GC package. You absolutely have a choice here. Just make sure you and your GC communicate super clearly about how finished you want the yard to look when they finally pull their equipment away.
Moving on to step 2, foundation, setting the base.
So, you generally have 2 main choices for your foundation, and your choice totally dictates your GC's workload. A typical foundation uses 10-inch thick, 8-foot-high poured concrete walls. If you go this route, your GC is going to be responsible for installing R19 fiberglass floor insulation under the house once the HVAC is done. But a lot of folks opt for the superior wall system. These are precast and already insulated to R21, so if you choose superior walls, the GC doesn't even have to bother with that extra house floor insulation. This is just a really great example of how your material choices directly impact on-site labor.
Down in the basement, your GC is busy installing some absolutely critical structural components. They pour a 4-inch reinforced concrete floor, finishing it up with a power trowel and sealant. Then, they install a 2x8 pressure-treated sill plate, which is basically the crucial buffer between the concrete and your wooden home. They'll also frame out any basement windows or doors if you're doing a walkout layout. And finally, remember that marriage wall we talked about? Well, the GC has to bolt jack posts and lowly columns directly beneath that wall using heavy-duty 3-inch lags. That's what supports the dead center of your home perfectly.
All right, step 3, the big day, delivery.
Now, what's really interesting here is the logistical puzzle of it all. You don't just show up with a house. The GC actually has to ensure there's dedicated space at the property to deliver and park all the massive sections of the home the day before they actually set it. Plus, the set crew usually needs the GC to have a dozer or some similar equipment on site just to maneuver these giant boxes so they're accessible to the crane operator. I mean, it is a highly coordinated dance of heavy machinery.
Next up, step 4, connecting your home's systems.
Let's break down exactly what the GC physically connects in the basement to power up all those factory-installed systems upstairs. For electricity, they bring in the 200-amp service from the pole, install the meter pan and the panel box, and connect all those electrical crossovers between the modular boxes. For water and plumbing, they bring the main line through the foundation, set up the pressure tank and water heater, and connect all the PEX plumbing drops coming down from above. For the septic, they install the approved system and integrate all the waste drops into one main line exiting the house. And for heating, well, the factory usually provides boot stud through the floor. The GC installs the furnace and ductwork to connect to those boots. Or, if you went with baseboards, they connect a site-installed boiler. Basically, the factory builds the network upstairs and your GC plugs it all in downstairs.
So the boxes are set on a rock-solid foundation, and the electrical, plumbing, and heating systems are all hooked up. The house is structurally sound and completely powered up. But what's actually left to make it a truly finished, livable home? That brings us to our final step, 5. Exterior and interior finishes. There's actually a pretty sharp contrast here between what arrives on the truck and what the GC must physically attach to the outside of the house. See, the factory often supplies the exterior materials, things like the siding, soffit, fascia, and plumbing roof boots. They just ship them right inside the home. But because of how these modules have to be transported, it's the GC who's responsible for physically installing that siding on the gable ends once the home is set. They also have to climb up on the roof to install those plumbing boots and get down on the ground to lay the initial gravel driveway according to your plans.
And on the inside, it's honestly amazing how much of the finishing work is highly concentrated right around that marriage line we defined earlier. The factory finishes most of the rooms, but the GC has to seamlessly finish the drywall, doors, and trim exactly where the two halves meet. If the crane or the drive-over caused any minor drywall cracks, which happens, the GC repairs them. They also complete the floor coverings right across that mate line, whether that means seaming the carpet or continuing the hardwood so it looks completely uninterrupted. They'll also install any tongue and groove floor decking up in the attic and ultimately give the place a full interior cleaning so you can actually move in.
30. That is the number of yards in the dumpster that your GC will typically bring to the site. Because, let's face it, building a house makes a surprising amount of a mess. A 30-yard dumpster is generally plenty for the GC to haul away all the trash, wrapping, and leftover building materials from your property during this final cleanup phase. And for the final touch, literally connecting your pristine new home to the ground safely. Your GC is responsible for installing code-compliant stairs with railings going from the first floor down into the basement. Then, out front and out back, they build the necessary steps, decks, or porches at all your exterior entrances, making absolutely sure everything is up to those strict local building codes.
So there you have it. The factory handles the heavy lifting of the indoor construction, but your general contractor? They're the mastermind on the ground. They handle everything from that very first permit and digging the deep trenches, all the way to finishing those final marriage line seams and building your exterior decks. So, with this clear blueprint of exactly what a GC's responsibilities actually are you ready to start laying the groundwork for your own modular build? Honestly, understanding this whole process is your greatest tool for a stress-free project. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy building!